it is clear to me Olivia has given the first half of the sermon already. That was the word of God there. Here's the other half. Please pray with me. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. Bear with me here. I like to think that I'm a pretty good person. Sometimes I can even be a bit awesome. God has given me some gifts. Again, bear with me. I don't think I'm being arrogant when I say those things. I prefer self-aware. And I know in life there's a fine line of that needle shifting between self-awareness and arrogance. And so I'm fine in that line. And so to know Shirley in your life was a way to push that line back a little bit. Shirley was someone that was 10 steps ahead of you in the caring and thinking of other people department. The closer you got to Shirley, the more amazing of an individual she was. The more of a reality check it therefore was for people like me who thought they were pretty cool people. I found myself reflecting on what a loser and insensitive person I thought I was next to this woman. Seriously. I felt inadequate next to her often because she was so much more considerate and thoughtful and just out there than I was. And I'm supposed to be the pastor. Come on. Around here at House of Prayer, Shirley was part of everything. And I feel like I'm going to say a lot of cliches and things that are like, they could be overstatements. They're not. She was part of everything. If you spent any time around her, you also knew that we at the church were a part of her life. And there were two parts of her life. The other part, of course, was her beloved family. On Tuesday, I finally, for the first time, met with Bill and Michelle. Shockingly, I'd never met them before. And on behalf of everyone here at church, we need to call you Billy, because that's the only way we have heard you referred for 11 years. Billy and Michelle and Olivia and Alex and Ava. But the thing is, when I met them this week, I already knew them. At least it felt like I did. She's been telling me about you all for 10 years, almost 11 years. I found out this week, unsurprisingly, that she has been telling them about us all the time, too. Just putting all of our stuff on their lap, having them do crafts for our church play days and all that business. And so I've come to the conclusion that what I have to say this morning about Shirley, some of it will be for you guys, her family, and some of it will be for you guys, her church people, and then some of it will be for all of us. So here's a thing for all of us. This sucks. This sucks. Shirley was not done living. Olivia alluded to that. She nailed it. She was not done living. She wasn't ready for this day. She wasn't ready for all of us to be gathering here right now. She certainly wasn't done being a wife to her beloved Dwayne. She wasn't done being mom or grandma. She just wasn't done. She wasn't done with her work here at church, right? And to be clear, this is not how a person gets out of being council president. You can't, well, it worked, but this is no future. This is not how you get out of being our president of our congregation. She had stuff to do here. She wasn't done with her work. She was totally invested in this cooperative ministry thing that we've been working on for over a year now. She was ecstatic about the $3,000 check we got a couple weeks ago to put air conditioning downstairs in our fellowship hall. Like, she stood up on that Sunday morning waving the letter to everybody. She wanted to get the narthex renovated under her watch of leadership here. Bill shared with me that there are church projects underway at her house right now for Easter, for church play day. She was leading church play day tomorrow, and her Spark Kids Bible is out with Post-it notes on of the things she meant to say. She had stuff to do. She wasn't done being mother or grandmother. She had graduations that she was preparing for. She had birthdays. She had mom plans. She had wife plans. She had grandma plans. She was not done. And we all know this. We all feel this, which is why we cannot wrap our heads around this moment right now. It's why we are heartbroken right now, and why we are feeling like we've been walking in a fog all this week. I've been at lots of funeral homes, and I've done lots of funerals now. Tuesday, I felt like someone needed to pinch me all day, like it wasn't real. It's why anger surfaces up in me this week. I'm not mad at her or mad at God, just mad, just angry. And it is healthy and right to feel these ways. Shirley has heard me say this a bunch of times and would affirm me in saying these next words to you. It is good and it is healthy and right that you and I are all heartbroken today. It is. God has made us for happiness and devastated sadness, laughing and weeping, joy and heartbreak. There is a time for both of those things, as we just heard. The Scriptures speak endlessly about God's people being heartbroken because of the losses of their life. The Psalms are full of stories of people weeping and yearning for God and loss. We heard the 23rd Psalm. The 22nd one starts out by saying, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And you feel so far from the cries. In the Old Testament, there's a book called Lamentation. Beautifully, it does not have that Disney happy ending at the end of it, but rather it ends with God's faithful people being in pain and loss. There's a story in John's Gospel where Jesus finds out that a friend of his, Lazarus, has died. He goes there. He sees Lazarus' sisters crying and weeping. There's a crowd of people. They're also mourning and weeping. And what does Jesus do? He puts his shoulders back and chin up and walks. No, he weeps. He cries. Mourning the loss of this amazing woman right now is right. Likely, many of us are carrying her loss and other losses into this moment. Lament them all. And lament as long as you need. Lamentation is not something that finishes today at the end of this liturgy. It doesn't finish tomorrow. It doesn't finish next week. It clings on to us, and it slowly gets better, but know that you can grieve as long as you need, my brothers and sisters. So, House of Prayer people, this part's for you. What do you think the following people or families have in common? David Ebersman, who is a former CFO of Facebook, Diana Ross's daughter, yes, that Diana Ross, the Dukakis family, the daughter of the king of Saudi Arabia, and other people like that. What do they all have in common? They all knew Shirley, and were touched by Shirley, obviously. Didn't see that one coming, did you, church people? So add this to the stories that Shirley never told us, or at least never told me. If you knew this stuff already, I'm mad at you for not telling me. So here's how. When Bill went to college, he went to the Ivy League School of Brown. Of course, most of the most successful people and wealthy people in the world send their kids to Ivy League schools like Brown. Bill used the word this week to me, hyper-wealthy, to describe his classmates. And there were, amongst them, was this boy from Aliquippa, not one of the hyper-wealthy people. And while Bill was at Brown, Shirley did what Shirley does. She sent him care packages all the time. Gradually, she heard the stories, got to know some of Bill's classmates, and as Shirley does, she started sending them things in Bill's care packages. I'm going to quote a little bit of Bill's text to me this week. He probably didn't expect I was going to read it verbatim, but it was so good I'm going to. I was literally the poorest kid on campus among the hyper-wealthy. And although they were hyper-wealthy and their parents never sent them care packages. And here's this poor boy from Aliquippa, and his mom sends him care packages each week with little notes and items for all these hyper-wealthy kids. They would literally run to my room to find out if she sent them something. They still ask me how my mom is. Part of me was shocked, but then the other part of me is completely unsurprised. No surprise to you, Bill, Michelle, Alex, Olivia, Ava. That's exactly the sort of person she was around here too. She was a gift to people of every age, as you experienced yesterday, especially the littlest among us. My 6-year-old wanted to come today. We made him go to school. Someone shared this story with me about Miss Shirley this week. Their little girl, Grace, 3 or 4 years old, loves ducks. One Saturday, they came for church play day, our monthly church kids thing we do here, and Miss Shirley as she was affectionately known around here, was waiting for them to get there and to greet them. And she went over to them as fast as she could. She welcomed them, and as part of her welcome and greeting for little Grace, she had a Pez dispenser with a duck on it. That was the norm, not the exception. Shirley, our dear Miss Shirley, was the president of our council. It's a role she didn't seek out, but was encouraged to her by others because they admired her and saw the sort of person she was. She came to every kids' event. She came to movie nights, Saturday church play day, like the one she's supposed to be leading tomorrow. She was part of our educational planning team. She used her incredible gifts of hospitality, which I have none of, and so appreciated in her, to guide us for pretty much every party and celebration we had around here. She listened to her congregation and led by her words and by her example. To be quite honest, I could go on for some time about this special woman and not come close to capturing the fullness of her. This brief time isn't enough for me. It's not enough for anyone else in this room. I said at the beginning that I often feel inadequate around her. That isn't really true, because she would never let anyone feel inadequate around her. She would never allow you to feel less. It wasn't really inadequacy that I felt, it was awe. I was in awe of her. In her, I saw what it meant to follow Jesus. If Jesus walked around, I think Jesus would have looked a lot like the way she lived. Friends, when you encountered her and her crazy joy, last night I called it psychotic joy, it just wasn't right. There's something off about it. And that is Jesus. It came out of her in these never-ending waves, like the ocean that just never stops. That's the way it was with her. She couldn't turn it off. That is a gift. In this amazing woman, we saw a radically loving and joyful person who showed us what God is like. If you want to know what God's love is, what God's desire for happiness looks like for you and for the world, you saw it in her. I hope you captured it. Our mission statement here at House of Prayer points to this way in which we gather, we teach, we nourish, and we send people to follow Jesus. And Shirley lived it. When you leave this place today, don't let this woman's story, her exuberance, her life, fall away. Tell her story by the way you live. Tell God's story by the way she lived God's story. Amen.